Sure.
Okay. I'm Kathleen Cook. I'm the president of Arizona Authors Association, and I've known Mark for well over 7 years now. He's a dear friend, and he has been a lifelong humanitarian. He was an executive for Hagar International, which tries to eliminate human trafficking around the world. He was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guatemala, where he learned fluent Spanish. And he's just done so many things and been to so many places trying to help people around the world. More places than I can count in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And he's also a member of our board of directors with the Arizona Authors Association. For those of you who are not members, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were established in 1978. Mark does a column for us, and I don't think you've missed a single column in the last 7 years. I really don't think you have. And he writes a column every issue in the Arizona Authors Association Digest, the Arizona Authors Digest. And it's a great magazine. So if you'd like a complimentary copy, if you're not a member, just write to me at the Arizona Authors Association at gmail.com. I'll put the address in the chat box, and I'll be happy to send you a complimentary copy with no obligation.
Mhm.
And without further ado, I'll let Mark take over.
Great. Thanks, Suzanne. It's great to be here. This is an organization that I believe a lot in. This is where I actually started as an author back in 2017. I started a little bit late. I was getting, my almost into my 70s before I became a full-time writer. And before that, as Katie pointed out, worked around the world in a lot of places. And I'll be sharing some of my stories today. As far as uh, how I'd like to see us interact, I'd like to recommend that if you have a question, put it in the chat, and Katie's going to help me keep an eye on the questions as I make the presentation. At the end, I'll be sure to leave 20 or 30 minutes for you to share some of your experiences and ask any other questions that you might have as well. Also, I'll be sharing with you after the event, and once we get our recording via YouTube, I will be sharing that link with you so that you can listen to it. If you missed anything, you can check it out. And also, I'll be including the notes, which includes a lot of links to other sources of resources that we'll be discussing. So, you know, uh, the world of book reviews has changed a lot over the years. It used to be sort of the go-to place for journals and for other publications, and now things have changed quite a bit. So I'm going to give an overview today of some of those changes and where I see the importance of book reviews today. I'll also be taking a look at um, the different platforms that are available to you and which ones are most effective and which ones are most effective as well. I'll be discussing when to pay, when not to pay, and I'll be taking a look at the growing number of scams uh, on authors and writers uh, to try to get or promote book reviews and promote books and that sort of thing because it's gotten sort of out of hand. Then I'll have a segment I call Smarter Than Me. And this is where I'll share some information from some outstanding authors and people that I follow and respect. One is Joanna Penn of the Creative Penn podcast. She'll give her overview and insights into the world of book reviews, and also Paul Theroux, who is considered by many the grandfather of travel writing and someone that I've had a connection with for many years. I should mention Joanna is someone I listen to almost every morning or two during the week, and and I support her Patreon program. This is where you pay for a cup of coffee type thing, and I do that with several authors as a way to support their work. And then at the end, I'm going to share my own personal experience and stories about the world of book reviews, the different ways, the different types of book reviews, a few of my favorite book reviews, and also some of the authors that I've connected with over the years as a result of book reviews. So, first off, let's take a look at some of the changes that are going on in the industry. As I mentioned, reviews historically have been gatekeepers to newspapers and journals. A single review from the New York Times or the Publisher Weekly could make a significant difference in how successful a book is. But that landscape is democratized over the years. And so now we have Amazon, Goodreads, BookTube, BookTok, all kinds of different outlets, beyond the traditional outlets. And also, there's this new concept of social proof, which is based on the quantity of book reviews that we do makes you a more viable, attractive writer, at least according to Amazon. And speaking of Amazon, we can't overlook the importance of algorithms, which are those computation instructions that determine who and what they promote and they share with a broader audience. And lastly, the professional reviews still exist. They're still important for libraries, for awards, for media kits, and that sort of thing. But they don't dominate the literary scene as they once did. So, why do reviews still matter? I would say increased visibility in search of algorithms, especially for Amazon and Google, is important. I'd say between 70, maybe even 80% of your books are now being sold online. So that's an area medium that we can't afford to ignore. Also, they boost credibility for readers deciding between similar titles and what their preference is going to be, and that's where the importance of a good cover comes in. But also, what is the essence of the book? What are some of the key words that you're using? And as I'll point out later on, it oftentimes provides great quotes and promotional information for us, or material for us going forward. Um, what are a couple of the key platforms? Of course, we have my personal favorite is Goodreads, because Goodreads really allows you to post your more sophisticated, more detailed work. But then we have the library thing, which is more focused on libraries. We have BookPage. We have Book Reporter. Barnes and Noble is still hanging in there. It's sort of a store focused, but they have quite a online capability now as well. Then we have our more sophisticated platforms like Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and if you can budget $400 to $500, Kirkus is a great place to go. But not all of us have that in our budget. So I'll be offering a couple of other alternatives. Now, the major difference between um, Amazon and Goodreads, for example, is Amazon is more sales conversion oriented. They're really looking for the books that are going to sell, and that's really their motivation. And that's why they're what they accept for reviews and how they use those reviews differs. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. It's weighted heavily on Amazon algorithms. They also tend to prefer verified purchases, which once again is focused on sales, and they're not curated. They're more focused on the number, not the quality. Goodreads, on the other hand, which incidentally was purchased by uh, Amazon in 2013, but they take a different approach and they're more discovery reader engagement oriented. They're more of a social network for readers. Their reviews tend to be more detailed, as I mentioned, and they influence the pre launch buzz. And they have a library interest at all as well. And I didn't realize it, but they also have a free book option as well, which is one way we can use to try to increase the amount of the level of readership. I want to share with you a message I got a few days ago from an author that I follow, Tim Weed. He's at the Newport, he's the core faculty member at Newport, the MFA in creative writing, and he's the co founder of Cuba Writers. And he was featured as an expert with National Geo. So this guy knows his stuff. He's a great writer, but he made this comment about the fact that his book was accepted by Kirkus and had that really nice review. He says it's always touch and go when it comes to the big trade publications that specialize in forthcoming books. Will they review the book? If so, will the review be positive? It's quite important too because these publications are influential with librarians and booksellers and can be leaders indicating potential success for new books. Kirkus reviewers in particular have a reputation for being pretty tough, so you can imagine my relief to find that guideposts, which is the name of the gateposts, which is the name of Tim's latest book, received an overwhelmingly positive review. But then he has a caveat at the end, which says a lot about the world of book reviews. Unsurprisingly, the reviewer did feel the need to balance his praise with a few notable puritanical asides, such as juvenile profanity. Heaven forbid. So, you have to take the good with the bad, and you have to be willing to deal with negative reviews because everybody has a different take on books, and your book isn't going to be uh, the most important one or the focus or motivational for everybody. So, one of my great frustrations over the years has been the fact that despite being a prime member of Amazon and spending a fortune purchasing stuff, and all of my books are on Amazon, my reviews were not being accepted. This is annoying. Am I the only one? Maybe the show of hands. Am I the only one that's had that problem, or some of the rest of you run into that as well? You've got a perfectly good review. Yeah, okay. I'm not the only one. So I thought it was annoying, and so what I did was I asked my buddy at Copilot AI, what in the heck is going on here? And I learned a couple of things about uh, what are the red flags for Amazon. First off, they want to avoid any conflicts of interest. Okay. And that's a problem because I'm a writer. So I have an interest. Secondly, any language that sounds promotional. And in my book reviews, I also often mention my books or my work as relates to a given author and what we have in common and that sort of thing. So that's another red flag. Inclusion of personal anecdotes. Well, I'm a storyteller. I use anecdotes everywhere, and certainly I use them in my book reviews. So that's another red flag. Detailed personal background information. Well, even though I do my reviews for free, I at least leave information at the end about who I am and where people can learn more, which is pretty basic. But it ends up that is not a good thing. Um, and you can't include any URL links. Because I'm also oftentimes I'll give information. You go to this place to learn more about this author or to learn more about, well, that's a no-no as well, because they don't want you leaving their site. So you have to put yourself in that mindset. We're about sales and we're about quantity. Um, so Steve Caffin is on this. He's a friend of mine, and he's board member, and he's a fellow travel writer. He's written a lot more books than I have. He wrote a recent one, My Twin Cities, Buenos Aires and Rio, which I love. So I told him I appreciated it, and I reviewed the book, and I had it published in a bunch of places, including on Peace Corps Worldwide, but it didn't make it in Amazon. And so Steve contacted me. He says, I really need that. And so I reviewed it, and I took some personal stuff out, and it still didn't cut it. So I asked my little buddy at Copilot, give me a review that's going to cut the mustard with these folks. Okay. So this is what they said. I found this book to be an insightful, well-crafted exploration of, it's travel and adventure. The author provides a rich blend of cultural observations, historical themes, and vivid description, and brings locations and stories to life, all of which is true. And the photographs, it says, if applicable, they definitely are, add a compelling visual dimension. Then it goes on one more paragraph, and at the end, overall, this book offers a thoughtful and comprehensive look at adventure travel, South America, making it worthwhile read for anyone interested in travel adventure. So there you go. And Steve, next
Yeah,
week I'll give that a shot. I'll personalize it a little bit, but we got to keep working on Amazon.
right. That's very interesting, Mark, that you mentioned that because I received the same message from Amazon for some reviews that I had written. I'm certainly not as prolific nor knowledgeable about the nature of reviews, but I didn't understand them not accepting several of my reviews, and so I'm very glad you got to the bottom of this. I tend to put uh, put uh, put some personal stuff in it, and if using a lot of eyes and relating to things like that, I just wonder, since I'm a writer, whether Amazon just caught that, said, look, even though I'm not promoting, perhaps in their algorithm I was. So, thank you for looking into that. Uh,
Well, the challenge is still there. Of course, to complicating all of this, Steve, is the fact that I reviewed your book and you reviewed my latest book, The Guatemala Reader. So, that's red flags. Are they just doing this tit tat type of thing? So these are the things they're looking at. Anyway, next week I'll give it another try, and I promise the algorithm gods up there that I will cool it and make this a lot more factual and focused than I have in the past. But that's not why or how I write book reviews, which I'll be talking about later on. So, um, how many of you have had problems with scams? Either scams that where people are trying to promote your book, or they're trying to offer you a book review. So I got five last week. Okay. Anybody else?
I get about 3 a day.
No way. That's impressive. Okay. That shows
At
that
least
you're
three
on.
a week.
What's that?
At least three a week.
Yeah, three a week. I'm up there 3 to 5 a week. So here's some of the things um that I learned. First off, um, I recently finished and published my latest book, The Guatemala Reader. Okay. And so that makes me a target. And of course, I'm getting these fabulous reviews from people I've never heard of before about why it's just the greatest and it inspired them for all kinds of things, etc. So if you've written multiple books or you're up online for one reason or another, I write a lot of articles as well that get published. So all of that makes you a target. So you'll know you're being scammed when the message is uses flattery, urgency, a fake book club. So you've got to keep an eye on the graphics. Is it legit, etc. And branding and focuses on the author's desire for visibility, which we all have. And my personal favorite was a friend of mine, Earl DeBerger's a local author and poet, wrote me, and he said, "Mark, is this offer to get a paid my book reviewed in the New York Times on the up and up? I mean, they want $7,500 for it." So I popped this into Copilot, see what the heck's going on, and I asked, "Should my friend pay?" And the response is just as clear as a bell. Absolutely not. So what's going on here? It ends up, this particular group was called City of Books, and others like Book Art Press, Reader's Magnet, Stratton Press operate on a similar model. So what we're doing here, these are ads, and it's basically a tiny paid listing and a third part insert. And authors pay that have paid has seen no measurable sales, no real visibility, and no follow-up. And you can go to Writers Beware, SFWA, and the Authors Guild to get scam alerts. So you have a heads up. So those are two places, Writers Beware and Guild.
Mark, may I
Authors.
say one thing right
Go
now?
ahead, of course.
Thank you. I just want to say that Mark and I are co-authoring an article on scams for the April Digest, and so be sure to look at the April Digest for the article I'm writing. And Mark has contributed to the article, and it talks about the most common scams right now. So just wanted to mention that.
No, I appreciate that. And could we good Lord, we've got 25 comments. So before I move on to what I recommend, this, that, and the other, Katie, let's take a look at what those 25
Oh,
comments are. And I'll make any
Mark,
comments I have, or we'll just let it stand. If
Mark, can you repeat that second site that you mentioned? There was Writers Beware and
yeah, and the Authors Guild.
Authors Guild.
The
Thank you.
Authors Guild. Yeah.
And with
So
Writers
Katie,
Beware, you can
there's-
also subscribe and you get a regular note from them that describes whatever the current scams are. It's very helpful.
What is that?
Writers
Robert?
Beware, you can subscribe. You don't have to go looking for them.
Oh.
They'll send you a newsletter every so often.
Often. Awesome. Okay. Okay, Katie, talk to us a little bit. What are some of the comments that are being made?
mostly about the scams and about how people tell you how much they enjoyed the book even before it's been published. So they just know the title, and you might have previewed the title, and they tell you how much. And so yeah, it's mostly about that. So it's mostly about scams. I guess everyone has experienced it at some time or another, and I think it's just so prolific. As president of the Arizona Authors Association, I get at least 5 from members every week, and sometimes that many a day. So, and they ask me whether they're real or they'll just inform me of the scams, you know. So, yeah, it's really prolific.
So,
Yeah.
Mark, can I make a comment?
Of course, David, go ahead.
All right, thanks. So, I got two of them. I know when they call me on the phone, they always say they've read my book, and I ask them what's it about. Then I say, if you read it, what's it about? And they'll usually just read me the back cover. So they just read what I've already got on the back cover. So that's
Right.
that's pretty obvious there. When I get an email, this is sort of profiling a little bit, but if they use the word kindly, they'll usually say, "Will you kindly, I don't know, get back to me," or something like that. It's a phrase that we don't use in the United States very much. It's used a lot overseas and in Europe and England, and people from other countries will say that, but they'll say, if you see the word kindly pop up in the conversation, in the requests and things, to me, that's a red flag. It means it's not coming from the United States. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment too?
You
I
can.
like I say, I got about two or three a day, and one of them I got. There's another author with my name in Indiana who writes biology books. I know nothing about biology. I
Mhm.
got an email scam the other day telling me how wonderful my book on biology is.
You gotta love it. Now, this reminds me, a few days ago, I got one for my great book, Big Ear Jack. And so, well, that's Earl de Bird's book. And I have a story about Earl later on, but they said, boy, it was a great book. But I reviewed the book, and then it won an award at our literary contest.
Yeah.
And I met his graphic uh, artist, Krista. She was there too, so Sondegger. And but anyway, that was a red flag right there. So they got the name totally wrong. And by the way, Lorraine just wrote an excellent article on for writers, prolific writers life. And so you want to check that out as well. It's got a lot of good information. And Lorraine says that when she's posted on Amazon, when they review her book, it never showed up in Amazon. Sends their message saying that their review did not meet community guidelines. That's it. Yes. That's exactly what they told me. And so I'm figuring, what are these community guidelines? Well, that is you can't mention another book or another author or anything that connects you with anything that they have on their in their algorithm and their on their site. That's what I think these community
Yeah,
guidelines.
that's exactly the phrase that I
Mark,
get.
Yeah,
Community guidelines. Yeah.
Mark, could I make a quick comment?
you can. Good to see you.
Yeah, you as
Go,
well.
go ahead.
I wanted to point out something a little different with this stuff with scams. I've noticed on my Facebook author page that the number of hits on that page will sometimes quadruple or even more. Just, out of the blue, there'll be like a couple of hundred of them. And I know that's unreal, but I've noticed that there's a correlation between that and the number of these scams that I get in my email. And I'm kind of curious if other folks have seen that relationship. It's very obvious that the people that are looking at my Facebook page are not really readers, are not really interested in what I do. So there's obviously some kind of connection there that people are using to fuel this scam thing even wider. So I'll leave it at that.
That's good. That's good. Uh, and Katie, we should mention that we've all also been getting innumerable messages from people telling us or asking us if we want um, the directory from Arizona authors, right? And
Yeah.
they're always signed as executive, whatever executive, right? How
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
you must get those a couple of times a week?
Oh, more than that. More than that. Every day they send at least one of those, where they have the list of all the members of the Arizona Authors Association and all of their personal information. They do not have it. And we would never sell or share that information. Even when I send mass emails to everybody, like when I send out the digest, I always BCC everybody else and only have my address, as the to and from, because I don't want any of our members to be able to see the other members. I mean, you
Sure.
never know. You
Well,
have
they
to
can
keep
go
that
on they
information
can go on our
private.
website and they can see the profiles of the actual members in this sort of thing,
But
but
only the
we
ones
don't
who have
share
chosen to
email.
publish their emails. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
here's a couple of other things that I found out that'll sort of support what we're looking at. One of the messages I got was from Jack Edwards of Sword and Laser, Goodreads group. And then there was another one, 2026 Baxall Reading Challenge. Then another one, Isabella Faith Collins. And so what I learned was this. First off, the real Sword and Laser is a long-running, reputable sci-fi fantasy community run by Veronica Belmont and Tom Merritt. They do not do cold emails. They do not have a Jack Edwards on outreach. And the email address, and this is something always keep your eyes out for, is Gmail.
Mhm.
So that's a big no-no.
or free. Yeah. No, no,
Yep.
the difference is that nonprofits also use Gmails. I mean, we use Gmail, but a lot of nonprofits who are on tight budgets, they'll use free emails. But the difference is that you can verify that email with a website that has been around for a long time. And you
Exactly.
can verify everything. So if you check that website and know how long it's been around, and the email is right on there, so you know it's a legitimate one. But we don't cold spam. We never cold spam anyway. The only way you will get an email from us is if you're a former member, if you've entered our contest, if you've contacted us for some reason, or if you visited our website and joined our website forum. Those are the only ways you're ever going to get mail from us. Like, former members, we want to get them back, so we'll email them twice a year. But no cold spamming. So if you
Well,
have never contacted us, you will not get an email from us.
so if you can't find a domain or website, then you know what the deal is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. So what are the options other than all of these spam related things? You can bet if they're offering you a list, for example, eventually the issue of how much you're going to pay is going to come up. So that this is what's behind a lot of this too. First off, you want to do really targeted pitches. Each of us has our own our own email list, our own group of readers and people that follow us and that we interact with. Those are the places where you want to be able to focus a lot of what you do. Um, Launch a team strategy. In other words, I know Kix Goldman did this with her book, which her latest book, which is bring together your friends and readers, and they form a group of your advocates, and you give them the advanced copies so they can read it, review it, and send it out to all of their friends and help you do some signings and some different activities. So that's another way that you're focusing on a group you have control. Email your list, send those verified books out, ARCs, we call them, advanced review books for people to look at and to review. Use reputable options like Kirkus, and my personal favorite is Midwest Review. Now, Midwest Review does an excellent review, right? And I've never paid more than $50. Now, I get a discount because I'm one of their reviewers, because every month I submit a review and I have a bookshelf there. That's one of the places where I post my my reviews. but that's a reputable group. They do a good job. You want to be able to quote somebody other than other authors, or, God help us if we're using family members in this sort of thing. You want to give some credibility to what you're doing as well. And most important of all, we want to leverage our networks. And that's why what we're doing here today amongst authors, the members of the Arizona Authors Association and our friends and cohorts, and also prolific writers, life members. This is the type of groups, and this is a place in the forum where we want to be interacting and discussing some of these things. For me, I also do this with Peace Corps Worldwide, and Steve and I are both members of the advisory board. Peace Corps Worldwide has been around for 35 some years. It's published 125 or so books from returned Peace Corps volunteers. And now the founders have decided to retire. And now there's a new group of us that's actively involved in restructuring and rebuilding, and really focusing more attention on publishing more books from returned Peace Corps volunteers. So that's been an important network for us. You want to use your social media. I use Facebook all the time. I use Blue Sky a lot, and I use LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, which is the go-to place now for professionals, especially if they're looking for a job. But even if you're not, they have groups, and they have about 7 or 8 really good international writer groups. So I post things on there as well. Yeah, Facebook and LinkedIn. So those are the places that that we can really focus on, where we have the control. And so here we go to the smarter than me segment. That's not that hard, but over the years I've interacted with a couple of really well-known authors. I want to share some of their insights for you. The first one is Joanna Penn of Creative Penn. She has a podcast. I listened to one the other day. It was number 829. So this lady's been around the block. She started her business about 15 years ago. She's in England. She's spent time and lived in New Zealand and in Australia. And so she's global. She writes nonfiction, she attends all the international conferences. She tends to focus on stories in churches and big cathedral type things, and she loves, uh, uh, she loves places where you find a lot of cadavers and dead people. That's sort of her thing too. So, but her podcast is excellent, very informative, and this is what she said. And I'll have that link in my notes for you to be able to follow as well. So this is what she says: significance of reviews is the proof of existence. The number and frequency say a lot. How to get them: call to action at the end of your books. So this is something that I started with my last book, The Guatemala Reader. So at the end, you remind people that how important, if they like the book, how important reviews are. Please take the time to review it, and give them a link to the book, and where they can purchase it, and also where they can review it. In my last book, at the very end, I did something else. I actually had a page, and it says, how can you make a difference? And I offered 5 or 6 of the international groups that I'm involved with or work with in Guatemala, and I suggested that they support them. I gave information. But using your own book is a good place, and any of your interaction on Substack, or if you have a newsletter, whatever. Use email lists. Once again, having your own email list, is very, very important. And sometimes you can say, here's something you might like, and then you can suggest your book or the latest thing you've done. Joanna said she got 600 reviews on one of her books that she offered for free. So offering free books has several advantages. One is you get a bestseller rating if you focus right on the right keyword and the right type of book. And then secondly, you get a lot of people who it adds credibility and that sort of thing as well. She says rating the rating process, just a reminder, don't be upset if you don't get all fives. You have to be able to, you have to appreciate the fact some people aren't going to like your book. Now, as creatives, as authors, we have the option to accept or not to share any of the negative comments too. So obviously, those are not going to be on the front of my next book if they thought it was boring, they didn't like it, or whatever it might be. So that's Joanna Penn. That's some of her pearls of wisdom. Someone who's published a lot of books, and she interviews top authors all the time. As a matter of fact, the other day, the author she had on, Kevin Anderson, is in charge of the MFA program at Western Colorado University, where I am an alum. That's in Gunnison, Colorado. Who would have ever thought? But there he was. So this is a great opportunity for me to connect with him and learn more about their program and introduce to him what one alum is doing in the area of writing and publishing. So the next person I wanted to share some pearls of wisdom would be Paul Theroux. And I picked this up. He did an hour interview on a podcast called Always Take Notes. I'd never heard of it before. I certainly heard of Paul Theroux. He's one of most influential returned Peace Corps volunteer authors, certainly the most prolific, with over 55 books, I think. And he's just warming up, it seems. He's got one out every couple of months. So he emphasized that reviewing books is far harder than most people assume. I think he's right. He notes that a reviewer must summarize, evaluate, contextualize, and judge a book all at once, which is a cognitively demanding task, requires both precision and fairness, which is not easy. He suggests that many reviewers aren't up to the task, which results in some very superficial, misguided reviews. He frames his reviewing as a kind of literary discipline, which I agree with too. One that forces the reviewer to articulate what works, what doesn't, something that many writers aren't able to really qualify. And he also hints that reviews can be distorted by personal bias, professional jealousy, and the reviewer's lack of understanding of the subject. And that's one of the reasons that I tend to focus on interviewing books or reviewing books that I actually have a background for. I don't go into fantasy and things and romance and things that I don't write about because I just don't know enough about it. And I doubt if my insights are going to be that helpful. So I'd like to share with you my personal journey about in regard to book reviews and some of the authors that I've interacted with over the years that have taught me a lot of things. And I actually see one of those authors in the house, John Thorndike. John, good to see you.
Good to be here.
I'm going to talk about you in a second, so stick around. Fundamentally, I believe 5 things in regards to all of this type of work. Reviews builds reciprocal goodwill within the writing community. It increases your visibility and literary voice. It helps you understand the craft more deeply. Right now, I'm reading Sir Vivian's Shadow. It's by Paul Theroux, and with his relationship with V.S. Naipaul, who's another fascinating and fabulous author. So when you review the books, you're learning about somebody else's world, literary world, and you see how they write. And that's why I think it's important to try to read the best authors that you possibly can in your area first. We can learn a lot just by reading their books. Encourage an organic networking with reviewers, bloggers, and authors, and that's why I think the literary community and the different organizations like Arizona Authors is important, and strengthens your credibility, and it makes it a lot easier to ask for reviews. And so, let me give you an example. In my latest book, I got a review by a guy by the name of Mark Jacobs. He's the author of Stone Cowboy, and he's published 200 essays in literary magazines, some of the top ones, Hudson, and some of the top quality ones. So he knows how to write. He's returned Peace Corps in Paraguay. He was in the State Department in Bolivia, which was the place of his book, The Stone Cowboy, which was about drug cartels and the cocaine industry there. He also wrote one called Silent Light, which is about the Congo, and I reviewed both those books. Well, this is the review that he gave, and sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing. I find out that some of the authors that review my books write better reviews than the quality of my books. That's a little embarrassing, but it's better to have that quality of insight and from really the top authors. I think it's important. So he says, Mark said, the Guatemala reader, the author begins with a truth that all travelers will endorse. There is always one place, one culture and country that becomes your personal lodestar. Your sense of the world in this ragged variety is guided by it. For Walker, Guatemala is that country, and the careful intelligence with which he has assembled the collection testifies to his deep understanding of place and the people who live there. So that's really hard to beat. Another one that I'll just embarrass you for a second, John. It'll only take a minute. But John Thorndike is returned Peace Corps, El Salvador. He lived in Guatemala, and we have a lot of connections in a lot of different ways. His latest book, which was just fabulous, The Passionate Sister, I reviewed, and I just loved it. And I just want to pass on one little connection point that I recommend. He sent me this nice little postcard, which is basically it's his book. Okay. I love this. So there's the book cover in a postcard. And on the back, here it is. And because we were talking about his book for a while, he sent me an early copy. And there you are in the opening pages. Thanks for that great blurb, John. So I love that. And I think it's important for us to say thanks and to recognize the authors that support us and that take the time to write about our books. Well, this is what John said about my book that I really appreciated. I should mention he's written a lot of other really great books, 100 Fires in Cuba, Another Way Home, A Single Father's Home, and this one, The Passionate Sister. I've had the pleasure of reviewing them all. This is a great collection of essays by Mark Walker, some evocative of a beautiful country, some quivering with hard facts and descriptions, all fully illustrative of what has been happening in Guatemala for the last half century and more. These are indeed extraordinary lives and amazing stories. Walker's connection to Central America goes back over 50 years. And then he goes on to say some other things as well. So, John, I really appreciated that. And that was in the front of my book.
I was just
Mark,
glad to read that book, as everyone you put out is just always a fascination to me. Of course, I have a back history with Central America, and so I'm inclined. But regardless, It's just a beautiful piece.
Oh, Mark, Mark,
Yes,
sorry.
Steve.
Well, first, I'm sorry. For 3 weeks, my camera's been broken, and I'm cameraless. But yeah, it's an astounding book, astounding, and I say that from the experience that I hadn't expected. I had gone to England, and I like Cambridge because the university and the city meld together, and the tea shops are filled with students and professors, and very conducive to writing. And so I allocated 3 days of some travel to do nothing but sit in the tea shop that I like, which is the Michael Street Tea Shop, and write. Unfortunately, I opened up your book, and 4 hours later, I got close to the end, and the next day I wound up writing that review. You're a bit modest in your own personal writing, and it was quite remarkable. So, and I wrote that kind of review about it too. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And even though we can't see Steve, he's a very handsome guy. But seriously, Steve actually turned up at my doorstep 2 weeks ago, and I actually got to sit down with him and offer him some Guatemalan coffee and get to know him. And that's just another part of that relationship, interaction with fellow writers and fellow creatives. That's really so important to our own emotional and sort of spiritual and literary growth. So I appreciate that, Steve. So anyway, I wanted to share a little bit more about my own journey with stories. I just gave you a little bit of background, what I think is important for why I think that I spend the time to do the work that I do, the reviews that I do, and one's overall literary goals and objectives and values need to drive one's approach to book reviews. And so I think it's imperative that we really are clear in our own mind, what are the objectives? Why are we writing this? And what do we think the impact is going to be? And what do you think the audience is going to be? Several author friends and family members, and my wife, I might add, have asked me why I spend so much time and effort reviewing other authors' books for free. And I think much of it has to do with the Peace Corps, that experience of working abroad and really putting yourself in a situation of trying to serve and trying to support people to accomplish their own, improve their own quality of life and opportunities for them. And I'm not surprised when I asked David Swift, who is a publisher, a writer and a publisher. He was Peace Corps Nepal, and he lives in Tucson, and his company is Arizona Book Publishing. And we've, as a board member at Peace Corps Worldwide, I approached him about being a member of our newly formed editorial board. And so, we've been in interaction with David, and I asked him the same question because he's able to publish a lot of books during the year. He does the editing himself. He keeps the cost sometimes down to $1,000. And so I was impressed, and I asked him, so David, how can you do that? Why do you do this for, I've got friends who have spent $15,000 or $20,000 to have a book published. And he said simply, I guess it was the Peace Corps. So I'm not the only one that's been influenced by that particular experience.
Would you repeat his name, please?
I appreciate you.
David Swift. And David's company is Arizona Arizona Books Publishing, and he's based out of Tucson.
Great.
I think he's on here somewhere too. Okay. So also there have been tremendous changes in the publishing industry. I didn't start writing until I was almost 70, as I mentioned. My first book, Different Latitudes, my memoir, was published in 2017. And the founders of Peace Corps Worldwide, John Coyne and Marion Beale.
Beale.
Pardon?
I just was giving her a name, Beale.
Beale, right. Were good enough to, really help me get started. And they found me an editor. And so I learned a lot through fellow Return Peace Corps volunteer authors, Chick Dumbach and Elaine Hildebrand. And so really that group got me started. In other words, that community of writers who have written their own memoirs or traveled abroad and this sort of thing, they were really helpful. And so it's nice as a member of the advisory board to be able to give back and be able to help that group to grow and to help other, future authors as well. And the other thing is, I've been a member of Arizona Authors and the Phoenix Writers Club since 2016, I think. And those groups, together with the professional writers, Arizona professional writers, have been really helpful in a lot of different ways as well. So having that camaraderie and fellow authors who are willing to help get the word out about your book, who point you in the direction of opportunities to do different projects, that really helps. That really makes a big difference. And then, as Katie mentioned, I have a column in the newsletter, the Digest, the Million Mile Walker Review, What We're Reading and Why. And so the why for me is very important because, there are over 4 million books that are published each year, 3 or 4 million. And so it's not an easy process to select which book you want to read. And so that's something that I pay attention to. And I mention in the book, why did I pick that one? How did I come across it? That reminds me, one of my favorite book reviews was, it's called the, let me see, I see it up here. Yeah, Living in the Kingdom of Mescal. And so this was a book that turned up at in my library. I didn't realize I had it. This was a book gifted by some Guatemalan German friends of my wife. And it's about an artist who was Mayan, born in Alta Verapaz in Guatemala. And she, at 14 I think at 12, she was taken by her stepmother back to Germany and where her father was, because her father was a coffee plantation owner in Guatemala, returned to Germany. So he took his daughter back, and the reason was so she'd get an education. Well, 32 years later, she returns to see her mother, but in Alta Verapaz. But in that time, she became an accomplished artist. And she had an art gallery. And this book, the Mescal, the Kingdom of Mescal, this was the key book for the hippies and all of the young travelers in Lake Atitlan for years. But the story is fascinating because you have this mixture of German and Mayan cultures. And so I couldn't help but enjoy that book, and I wrote a review of it. And actually, it turned up in my latest book, The Million Mile Walker Review. That it's the first story. So a lot of times the reviews that we do open us up to a whole new world of writers, a whole new sort of world of, in this case, the Mayan culture, Guatemala, psychedelic drugs, all of that sort of stuff makes for a fascinating story. So I wrote that story and ended up putting it in my book. But I've had over the years another number of authors that have inspired me and that I've had a chance to interact with. And it's interesting to go just for, I want to mention a few of them that relate to the books that I reviewed and then what came out of that interaction. One is Earl de Burgh, the guy that wrote Big Ears Jack. Well, he wrote the first book of his I read was of poetry, which I never do. But he wrote about his poems were about Guatemala and the Southwest, two of my favorite areas of the world. And so I reviewed the book. It was published by a group in India called cyberwit.net. And they're in Mumbai. And they loved the review and they published it. They have their own journal and they published it. So I pitched them. I said, look, you guys do a great job with these with these poetry chapbooks. How about a travel chapbook? Well, they went for it. And that's how My Saddest Pleasures 50 Years on the Road, my second book, was published. So those reviews can they can generate some very interesting results. And of course, Earl and I have worked together on a number of different projects. He is the founder of Seeds for a Future, where I'm a board member, which works with children and women in Guatemala, meeting nutritional needs and that sort of thing. And I've reviewed a few of his other books, and I got him involved in Arizona Authors, which he has appreciated. And as I mentioned, he was just given an award for his book, Big Ears. I've reviewed books of Kix Goldman. Her book was Speak from Your Heart and Be Heard. And she's actually a neighbor of mine, so we're friends. So that was great. And I've reviewed several of Jody Sharp's book, the Angel series. And one of her books, When the Angel Sent Butterflies, was a children's book. So I never review children, but I don't barely read them except to my grandkids. So I read this, The Angels Are Butterflies. I read it to my grandkids. And at the end of the book, they had a place where they can color things in, etc. So we did that. I read it and they did the drawings. And then we chatted about it. What did it mean to you? And what are angels? And this, that, and the other. They loved it. So my review is based on the review of my grandchildren. And I have photographs in the review of them doing the drawings, which was pretty neat. So I never thought I'd end up reviewing poetry or children's books, but they were good experiences, and I think the authors appreciated the work as well. One of my favorite authors, the one who is, I consider a mentor to a degree, is Tom Miller. Now, he was out of Tucson. He's one of the best travel writers around. Most people know him from the Panama Hat Trail. And I reviewed his book, Writing on the Edge. And The Revenge of the Saguaro is another one of his books. So about 5 years ago, he tried to contact the folks at Peace Corps Worldwide. And he said he wanted to find somebody who would write a biography about the best known and the best Peace Corps experience author, Moritz Thompson. And so I heard that and I said, I'm interested. Well, it ends up that Tom and Paul Theroux both met and considered Moritz to be friends. Now, Moritz is an interesting character. He didn't join the Peace Corps until he was 48. All 5 of his books were published and written on a second story sort of hut in the middle of the jungle on a typewriter. His writing is transparent. It's so illustrative of some of the challenges of trying to work in a different culture. He was in the black slave area or former slave area of Ecuador on the Pacific coast. And it's a pretty isolated area. You can only get around in canoes. But his writing was just fabulous. And also, Tom and I wrote articles and we submitted them to the Solis Awards. And one day he sent me a note saying, congratulations, you got a bronze award for Shifley's epic equestrian trip through journey through South America. And he said, by the way, I won the gold. So we've interacted. He's helped me and provided support in a lot of ways. And we've had this shared desire to write about Moritz. And he gifted, before he tragically passed away about a year and a half ago from Parkinson's, he gifted 5 boxes of materials about Moritz Thompson to the University of Arizona Special Collection. And that was the source of the information that I've been working on. And I've interacted with Tom on this and with Paul Theroux. Paul suggested that I connect with the folks at Eland Press in London, which I did, and they received and accepted one of my reviews and a profile of Moritz Thompson. So that was fabulous. But they couldn't pay me in cash, so they sent me 3 books. They said, you select 3 books. Well, I selected one from Ronald Wright, and it was about my journey through the land of the Mayans in Guatemala. And it's a fabulous book. And I took sort of a different approach, since I had been through and worked in a lot of the communities that he was talking about. I actually wrote my review of his book as if I was accompanying him on that trip through Guatemala with people from the Mayan community. And Paul Theroux is an interesting guy. He, I think, as I mentioned, 56 books. He's one of the really consummate authors. I think he's 83 years old, so he's writing some things that he hadn't written in the past or wouldn't have written in the past to sort of solidify his legacy. But he's a very creative guy. He's a great travel writer, and he is a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Malawi. So I keep meeting these people along the way, and he told me that the folks at Elan had connected with him and asked him to gift his introduction to My Saddest Pleasure by Moritz Thompson, because Elan published 2 of Moritz's books. And would he give it to them for free? And he told me, well, I said I would, but I know Moritz would have been pissed off because he hated editors and he couldn't stand publishers. So Moritz was a pretty cantankerous guy. He never had a good word for any of these editors or publishers. I still haven't been able to commit to get through to be an advocate for my book. So I've been working on it 7 years and going. So these connections are helpful. They don't always pan out the way that you'd like them to. Another author that I've got to know that shows another side of relationships with authors is Francisco Goldman. Now, he's Guatemalan American. His mother had connections with United Fruit Care in Guatemala, which has a rather dark history, to say the least. But he wrote The Art of Political Murder, which was the killing of Bishop Girardi in Guatemala. And it's a fabulous book. Not MTV. What is the big one? Anyway, his documentary was done by HBO. And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth it. Really gives you insights into the underlying relationship between the military and the attempts at basically was genocide, the killing of 200,000 Mayans over a 36-year civil war. That really, you don't get that type of information or insights from other places, from people who don't have a really close connection to the country. And Francisco and I have been interacting for a while now because Jose Ruben Zamora, who's one of the respected editors, in this case of the Periódico a newspaper, was thrown in prison 3 years ago for money laundering. Well, he has nothing to do with laundering. He is a fabulous editor. He's a talented guy. They threw him in jail because he was criticizing and critiquing the military and the government in his newspaper, and that was a no-no. So just recently, 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was let out of prison, and now he's at home under house arrest. That's the best they could do. So we've been. It's nice to work together with authors when you also have a common cause and a common focus and that sort of thing. And the last story I want to share is Larry Grobel. He published The Hustle, which is basically about the making of freelance writers. And I thought it was a great book. I thought it was timely. It was one of his first books, so I reviewed it and I got to know him a little bit. He was Peace Corps in Gabon in West Africa. And his books are well known because he's known as the interviewer's interviewer. So this guy has interviewed Barbara Streisand, Marlon Brando, Saul Bellow, Capote, among others. And he was the co-editor of Playboy magazine. So he knows his stuff. And so I interacted. I showed him whenever I get his book placed in a different place. I let him know, and he was joking with me. And he said, "Oh, I bet we'll sell at least 2 copies this time." But he didn't write the book to make money, and I didn't review the book to write money. The fact is, he has a unique perspective on being a freelance writer. And so that's what our focus was. But here was the interesting part of the story. About a week ago, he connected with me and he said, "Mark, I've been thinking now that I understand what's happening at Peace Corps Worldwide, that really sounds like a great group. If I could republish my memoir, which I self-published 30 years ago, I'd be willing to do it because I have new material I think I'd like to add. And I'd have it published. I'd be willing to have it published at Peace Corps Worldwide." Well, if that happens, that will be a fabulous opportunity for Peace Corps Worldwide to have some well-known authors like that published and sort of wake up the world. Well, Peace Corps Worldwide is growing, and it's going to engage and support more, more authors. So that was Larry Grobel. Now, to end up, I just want to share with you a couple of my favorite reviews because, the reason that we write reviews is not, as I mentioned, to make money, but really, it's really to appreciate the literary community, to support the literary community, to look for ways to inspire and creative ways to review books. So I wanted to share a couple of my favorites. The first one was Making of the Kingdom of Mescal. So I already told you that story. The next one was the one with Ronald Wright, his journey through the Mayan community in Guatemala. I told you about that. The next one I call Appalachia, A Tale of Two Novels. Now, the first novel was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, who happens to be an honorary member of Arizona Authors. And I loved her book, Poisonwood Bible, among other. But she was born in Appalachia. She writes about Demon Copperhead. And what I did was I reviewed the book, and then I reviewed I'd already reviewed J.D. Vance's The Hillbilly Elegy. So what I did was I combined the reviews and I contrasted what their experiences and connection was to Appalachia and how different their perspective was about who was responsible for the exploitation and the fact that it tends to be a fairly poor area, and how a lot of the people in the Appalachia are not recognized, they're not appreciated, and they're not respected in this country. So that you have two very different stories, and what happened and what they did with their knowledge and how they connect with other people about what's going on there politically is very different as well. So that was I enjoyed that, being able to take reviews, to be able to contrast certain realities and that sort of thing. The other one, I reviewed a couple of books of Miguel Ángel Asturias, who in the 50s, he won, the only Guatemalan that won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And two of his books, one was El Presidente, the president, the other one was The Green Pope. And that was about one of the worst dictators Guatemala's ever had. And they've had a lot of bad ones, just for, number of people killed, thrown in prison, etc. And The Green Pope is about the history of United Fruit in Guatemala and and what impact they had on eventually overthrowing, together with the CIA, the government of Guatemala, and eliminating their only democratically elected government. And so I think it's important for us to look at the classics. I reviewed Mario Llosa's book, the Harsh Times, and that's also about the dictators and that sort of thing. And it's important during this time where dictators and sort of fascist governments are growing in different parts of the world for us to understand that dynamic, because a lot of the same things are happening today. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, as I mentioned, Miguel Angel Asturias is a fabulous author. He was born fairly close to where I met my wife, and there's a museum or two in Guatemala, which was good for authors to go visit, and it's very inspirational. Another one of my favorites is Volcanoes Above Us by Norman Lewis. And I learned about this author in this book. He's one of the great travel writers. And as you can imagine, the volcanoes above us, this takes place in Guatemala. So I learned about this from Ryan Murdoch, who has a podcast, Personal Landscapes. And he shares stories about, he was in Guatemala as well. I reviewed his book, Vagabond Dreams. So I've gotten to know Ryan a little bit as well. And so that's how I found out about Norman Lewis and this fabulous book that I interviewed. And then lastly, all of Moritz Thompson's books, starting with Living Poor, which is the greatest one. His last book wasn't published until 32 years after his death, The Bad News from a Black Coast. So I reviewed that as well. And as I mentioned, for the last 7 years, I've been working on my Moritz Thompson reader. And I haven't found a publisher, but I'm still I'm not giving up hope. And so those are a couple of my favorite reviews. It gives you an idea of why I write reviews, what you learn about the authors, how it impacts how you perceive a good book, and also the impact it might have on teaching people certain things, motivating people, inspiring people, helping people to understand different cultures and cross-border communications and that sort of thing. So I just want to end by saying, no matter how many books you've written, how many reviews you've done, I think I'm up to about 100 reviews and 100 reviews that I've written. Or we could look at Barbara Kingsolver. The Poisonwood Bible has received over 20,000 reviews and been translated into 20 languages. So whether or not you've had just a few reviews, a couple of books, I think that we all have an important role in the literary community. And so supporting, teaching, learning, volunteering, motivating, and inspiring the next generation writers, I think, is our task and important reason of why we should be reading books and reviewing books. So I'd like to open it up to any questions that folks have. Katie, are there any questions there?
There's a question from Thomas. He wants to know if Amazon accepts reviews if you haven't bought the book on Amazon. If you bought it from like Barnes and Nobles, will they accept a review on Amazon?
Yeah, that's one of the red flags. Thanks for bringing that up. They're really, and it's annoying because when I get a book directly from the author, they won't accept my review, because I didn't buy it. Well, no, I have a connection in the community and I'm a professional reviewer and they won't accept it. So that is a big problem.
Yeah.
What else?
That's all I have on chat.
Oh,
Well,
Mark?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Who's on?
I think two of us spoke at the same time. Whoever the other person was, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, you had mentioned earlier, Mark, that we have the option of not showing or sharing negative reviews. How does that work? Did you mean on Amazon? You can't just
No,
decide
of
what
course
goes
not.
on there.
I said as relates to materials that we use to promote our books,
Oh, okay.
right? So I'm
Oh,
using
for
your
sure.
quote, I'm using Mark Jacobs' quote, right? But I might not include a comment that is not, is not going to motivate somebody to consider writing or reading the book.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have to be select. We have to be selective. So the more reviews we get of our books, the more opportunities and positive angles come out of what we write. What was the other question?
Will you do reviews in advance of publication?
Of course. That's why we get these and send out these advanced review books.
Okay.
And I really haven't been as good as well organized as John Thorndike has been, because he always has this dialed in and he sends the books out to the people that he wants to look at them, and he's done that with me. Paul Theroux sends me his editors have sent me his last 3 books that I reviewed. My favorite was the Burma Sahib, which is the life of George Orwell. Fascinating book. But sending those books out ahead of time and getting the good reviews, I didn't do it on this one, the My Saddest Pleasures, which was the chapbook, because I was just happy I found a publisher and they were going to publish some of my stories, and they did a fabulous job with the photographs too. So I mean, they really stand out. So I was just happy as can be. But since I didn't take the time to send it out to anybody, I didn't have any reviews. So now I'm putting together a new and expanded edition that's going to include the good reviews that I did receive in the front. And then I've added 5 new stories. And I'll have a map at the end of it, and it'll show all the different places that I was when I told my stories. So now I'm sort of paying catch up. But the idea is to have the book a proofed book that's sent out to people ahead of time.
You had mentioned at one point not getting reviews from relatives. What if you have a relative in a prominent position, like a congresswoman?
Of course, you don't have to tell them the relationship.
But we have the same last name.
Well, okay. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more challenging. But the key here is recognition. And so if you have somebody that's influential, that somebody knows, I think those are the best reviews. You don't want to have your aunt or something like that who, she's loved anything you do or write or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, I think that's a little bit different. And it's all about getting recognition, credibility, and getting positive exposure.
Mark, will Kirkus review a book that's been published several years ago, or do they just do newly published books?
I don't know, Peter, because I've never had the $500 to have them do a review for me. So I don't know. You'd think they'd be flexible. I mean, I'm
They are.
flexible.
I think they are. If you have the money, I think they'll at least look at it. They may not accept it, but money talks.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're making some bucks there, so I think there's probably going to be a little bit more flexibility there.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve, you had a question or a comment?
Uh, yes, a question. Uh, for Amazon reviews, is there a length beyond which the typical reader of Amazon reviews uh, will will not consider it because they find it to be something that's planted versus, let's say, on Goodreads where one expects something a little longer?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, Steve, that I've been so unsuccessful getting my reviews published in on Amazon because my reviews are very lengthy and they're very detailed. I take a lot of time, I put a lot of work into them, but that doesn't impress Amazon because that's not what they're looking for. But I've never had that trouble with Goodreads. So I put the whole thing in, and I put my bio in there at the end, which is a big no-no for Amazon as well. So I think and you were the one that mentioned the issue of length before we got into this whole interaction about why they didn't publish my review of your last book. And I think you're right. I think you're a lot better off 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and then not doing any of the other things that I mentioned during my presentation. I think you'll have a lot better luck in Amazon.
Yeah,
I'm going to try it next week. I'll let you know what
all right.
happens.
Well, why I ask that because I think we've noticed over time these extremely long reviews that find their way into products, where the first review may be something that is never ending and gives more detail than a reviewer would give. And so I think over time, Amazon readers have been kind of attuned to something which is so detailed that it might be a plant. And, Mark, that's why I'm kind of asking.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the algorithms are they're formulated to avoid and to identify.
Thank you.
One
Kendall,
thing,
did you have a comment?
Yes. So I'm totally impressed by what you have been doing, and I'm just wondering how you squeeze in your writing with all the other things you're doing, the connecting, the reviewing, and so on. And there's another part of the question, which is I'm actually from Boston, and I'm coming to the Tucson Book Festival. Are many of you coming to the book festival?
we will have a table. We will have a booth at the Tucson Festival of Books, and Daniel Dickinson will be managing that table. I know Bart's going to be there. He's there. There he is. Bart's going to be there, and and a few people are, and it's going to be a good size. We're going to have a corner booth. I believe the booth number is 148. Just I think it is, but we'll be in a good spot.
Yeah, it's 148, Kathleen.
Okay, thanks, Jane.
Well, I'm sorry, this is a little bit self-serving, but is there any sort of way of, maximizing how to make best use of the book festival? And I don't want to take up time to talk about that, but maybe you could refer me to something that you may have published or written about, or guidelines already there.
I'm going to email you right after the meeting. I'll email you today and give you some information on that. Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I could let me finish this other part of his question first,
Yeah.
Lorraine. So how does it affect my writing? I have all these other things doing. Basically, I don't write enough. So I mean that's just the bottom line. Today I'll have 5 grandkids coming over. So I've got lots going on doing reviews and all of this sort of stuff. And I'll have to admit I haven't written as much as I really should. I have my monthly Substack and I do a couple of reviews
In the
maybe
column.
Yeah, that's true. And the column and all the reviews. Yeah, so I write a lot of reviews. I write some articles. I haven't been good to writing books, but I have that great book, the Moritz Thompson, a reader that's sitting there, and I'm going to continue on that after 6 years, eventually to get the darn thing published because there's a lot of work, as you all know. It's a lot easier sometimes to get them written than to actually get them published and to get them seen. So yeah, I don't think I think it's affected the amount of writing and at some point I might make a change and let some of my board activities and small writing activities go if I want to really focus on another big book. But fortunately, I've been working on the big book and it's sitting there and I still haven't gotten it published.
You
So
Mark, your life is the epitome of the phrase "there's only 24 hours in a day,"
yeah.
and yet it's very interesting. I email you with like 2 or 3 days notice that I'm coming to visit a relative whom I haven't seen in 20 years living in Phoenix. Let's you and I get together, and whatever was going on, you said, "Sure, give me a time." So in that 24 hours, you seem to find a lot of time to do most everything.
Yeah, well, my door is always open to a fellow writer, my friend. So that was like a no-brainer. You're always welcome here. But yeah, we have to prioritize things too. But at the end of the day, 4 or 5 o'clock, I shut up shop and take my little Norfolk Terrier out for a walk and just chill out. So I'm not going day and night. You have to have those limitations. You have to know when to relax and when to enjoy your friends and your family and that sort of thing. That balance is a big challenge. But one of the beauties of knowing a lot of writers and authors is you learn a lot about life and about how to make really define what's most important and how to find that balance. We all have to do that.
Yeah.
If I could, I was just going to say to Kendall, we've been talking about the book festival. We have different authors at Prolific Writers Life that are going, as well as Arizona Authors Association, but particularly on Monday and Friday, because I'm going to be there. And then one of our members, Rod, is also going to be having a double booth with a bunch of authors. So you're welcome to join in those conversations, Kendall. And also I would say, be sure to review the agenda online. Go to the Tucson Festival of Books agenda online and there's hundreds of authors. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of talks. Look at it and make your plan ahead of time, because if you just show up, there's just so much. And if you just want to have fun and, be spontaneous and wander around, you'll have a blast. But at the end of it, you might think, oh, I just missed my favorite author, an author I really wanted to see that spoke on Saturday morning. So definitely make your plan ahead of time.
Well, thank you so much. How do I connect with you on Mondays and Fridays?
I'll put my email. I did put a link in the chat, but I can also give you my email.
Oh, thank you so much.
And Lorraine, I do want to mention your a resource that you put on the chat, which was the how to get book reviews, an essential guide for authors. That's on Prolific Writers Life too, and it's in the chat. So if you can scroll up to the chat a little bit. In fact, I can copy and paste it to put it down at the bottom so that people can see it better.
After Mark spoke, I have lots of updates to do to it. So thank you, Mark.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you all.
Lorraine.
And don't forget to contact me at Arizona Authors Association at gmail.com. And I will be happy to send a complimentary issue of the digest and answer any questions if you have them about the Arizona Authors Association too.